Hi, this is Ian from Workflow86. In this video, we'll show you how to run your first workflow in 5 minutes. So after logging in, we can go to the Workflows page. And on there, you'll see your first workflow. Let's open it. What we're seeing now is the README pop-up. This is where you can set it so that the person opening the workflow has some information about it. So what is your first workflow? So it's the workflow that you see in front of you right now. It consists of 4 components. And it's been designed so that when each of these components run, it will provide you some information about how that component works. So you can essentially run this workflow and learn at the same time. So what does it mean to run a workflow? So what we're looking at right now is what we call the canvas. This is where you would build your workflow by adding the components to it. After you finish building your workflow, your users can then run it. Running a workflow will cause the components that you've added to the workflow to run one by one. So in this case, it will start with the form component, then it'll proceed on to the signed task component, then the conditional logic component, and then finish with the email component. To run this workflow, we first have to publish it. Publishing a workflow puts it into the production state so that your users can access it. So let's click Publish Now. Okay, so your workflow has now been published. So we're now ready to run this workflow, which we can do by clicking the Start button. When you click the Start button, what will happen is that a web form will appear in your browser because the first step in this workflow is a form component. So let's click Start. So we're now viewing the form that was generated by the form component. You can read about the key concepts in Workflow86. And you can read about how the form component works as well. We'll then ask you to enter your email address and your name. So after you submit this form, what will happen is the form component will run and then we'll proceed on to the assigned task component. The assigned task component in this case has been configured to assign a task to you. And when it runs, it will send you an email with the task in it. So let's fill in the form and click Submit. So after we've submitted the form, we'll check our inbox. And you'll find an email with your task in it. So your task is to complete the web form that's associated with the assigned task component. Now you can view this web form by clicking the link in the email. So let's click it. So we're now viewing the form that's generated by the assigned task component. You can read about how the assigned task component works and how the conditional logic component works. We'll then ask you to select a fun fact. So after you submit this form, what will happen is that the assigned task component will run, then it'll proceed on to the conditional logic component, and then it'll proceed on to the email component. The email component has been configured to send you an email with the fun fact that you selected. So let's go ahead and select our fun fact, pumpkins. So now that we've submitted the form, we'll go check our inbox. And you'll find the email with the fun fact in it. Your fun fact for pumpkin, and here's the fun fact. And that's it. That's how you run your first workflow in 5 minutes.